You're listening to the For ClimateTech series on the Forward Faster podcast, providing bite-sized insights for climate tech innovators.
Hello, and welcome to For ClimateTech's podcast, powered by Forward Faster. I'm Shelby Thompson, Senior Community Manager with Scale For ClimateTech. With me today is Teri Dankovich, co-founder of Folia Materials, and Bertha Jimenez, co-founder of Rise Products. Both founders and mothers participated in our Scale For ClimateTech program last year. Hello and welcome to the podcast, or shall I say Momcast. I'd love for you to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Teri. If you could please give us an intro about yourself, why you started your company, and if you can remember the moment when you first thought of the idea.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. This is my first Momcast. So to start with, my company, we founded it actually over 5 years ago now, which is amazingly, that's been that long. It originated from much longer ago. I was a doctoral student at McGill University where I started doing research on one version of one of our products at the time, and it was related to our water filter. We have a sustainable point of use antimicrobial water filter that we have a company in Bangladesh that we're selling the product to working class customers there. So the moment I first thought of this was kind of a long time ago. I graduated with my PhD back in 2012. So the idea I saw it to become a business was really when there was a lot of consumer interest in the product before I thought of it as more of a research project. So I would say that gradually happened between 2012 and 2016 when we actually formed the business.
Amazing, thank you. How about you, Bertha?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And yes, this is also my first Momcast. So I'm happy to have it with Teri, like our first Momcast. So yeah, my name is Bertha Jimenez. I am from Ecuador, and I came here to do my PhD at NYU, and later on I found the Rise Products. I guess the first time it started was kind of similar when I was doing my PhD. And I was doing research on entrepreneurship education and what's the role of co-curricular programs in higher education to develop entrepreneurs. And then they came with challenges. I would like be researching entrepreneurs and interview them, but I would also like be part of different companies. And there was this challenge that was like really interesting for me. And in that one, I participated myself. Was about like how we can make cities better. And I'm a firm believer of industrial symbiosis, that basically is the byproduct of an industry become the raw material of another industry. And I guess that's when I started kind of like pushing that idea, but it has changed a lot. At the beginning, we thought it was more like creating a marketplace to buy and sell byproducts, but right now we are selling flour and baking mixes.
Amazing. And as you two are both co-founders, who is your other co-founder? Bertha?
So my other co-founder is my husband, which I met when I was doing my PhD.
Nice. How about you, Teri?
Yeah, same.
Well, now that you've started your businesses with your husbands and your co-founders and your business partners, now that you are also now parents on this journey, which is how we are all brought together. I'd love to highlight that both Teri and Bertha gave birth to their children. Maxwell is Teri's son. Edgar is Bertha's son during our program year in 2019, 2020. So congratulations to also joining a climate tech focused program while pregnant and running your business. What a feat. I'd love to just dive in a little bit into, as you're running this business in this climate technology, what do you feel like is your responsibility first as a co-founder of this business and then as a parent to make sure that your technology is ethical and accessible to all? Bertha, let's start with you, who came from Ecuador to America and started a business.
Yeah, no, I just want to say something, like, because you were talking about the last year, the cohort, it was funny because like it was one of the first meetings and I was planning to go and I have like, see, like my due date, it was a couple weeks. So I'm like, okay, I'm going. And then like I find the morning, like, oh my God, my water broke. I guess I'm skipping this one.
It's true.
So, so it was like the second session. I was like, we have to miss this one.
Yeah, none of us even knew that you were pregnant because we didn't even meet you yet.
No.
So we were like, I mean, I knew that I was pregnant at that time, but Maxwell was born a few months later. So I was like, wait,
yeah,
to be in the first baby in this cohort. What?
Yeah.
There's only like companies.
yeah. And 2 pregnant women. Yeah, no, like, no, because the first one I skipped because I was like not feeling so well that day. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the second one. I also have to skip.
Yeah. That's part of the journey. It's part of the journey, whether it's onboarding to a new program or having a child. You never know. You never know what might happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think, like coming from Ecuador and, being in the United States and like thinking about technology, I remember the first time we started like thinking like how to make change, like this byproduct that is like a really wet material with like a high humidity into something, to making something that is dehydrated and lasts longer. One of the things was like how we can make something that works for the United States, of course, but can also be part of our own countries. Because like for me, like making something that was like super high tech that will only be useful for like, like United States, Europe, and other countries that can afford it, that was kind of like out of the question. Because otherwise, like, what's my point here? Like I want to make technology that is accessible, that, can be replicated and that can everybody have it. So I always, like, we were like super conscious about that. Like, like, yeah, there's like a lot of stuff. And also like, sometimes I think, like these other type of technologies, if our technology provide a product that is like, I don't know, 95% there and the other one is 100, but it's more accessible, I'd rather have the 95 than the 100, just because I think part of, of being, like, I think it's my responsibility as an Ecuadorian to be able to create stuff that are good, of course, for the United States, but also for the planet and for my country. So like, and I think it's not just like my responsibility as an Ecuadorian, but it's also ethical and what's morally right.
Teri, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I actually been looking at kind of renewable materials for a long time. I had been interested in, and I was an undergraduate student like 20 years ago. And so this is, climate technology and climate action has been something that I've always, like as an adult, thought is an important thing to do, not just to the birth of having a child, to be honest. But so like one of the things that we do, maybe different from other water filters, is that we use a paper-based water filter media. So it can be potentially recycled or composted and that sort of thing, following the usage of the water filter, which, a lot of companies have kind of more elaborate versions of full of plastic and that sort of stuff for water filters for the similar market that we're looking at anyway, because that weren't questions that people were asking, I would suppose. So yeah, and of course, even though paper has had sometimes a bad rap because you're cutting down trees, I do want to remind people that trees can be and are sustainably grown in many countries. And, if they weren't sustainably grown, the whole, paper and wood industry would be having serious issues. So we love wood products, and we do like certain paper things, like paper bags are better than plastic bags, clearly. But, sometimes there's some disconnect there with civiculture, trees, and paper. And I just want to kind of say that, yes, using products that are made out of wood is generally better than various plastic products. And that's something that we like to stress with our technologies.
Absolutely. Thank you, Teri. It is important to note that it's not all 100% good or bad. There is there's a middle ground. So you both touched on a little bit of, now that you've come to create this business with your co-founder, who is also your husband and your business partner and a parent. When along the journey of building your business did you decide to that you wanted to become a parent, and then when did that happen for you? Obviously, we've described that it happened within this program, but in the long term, it might be helpful for other new founders to know how your journey happened. So Teri, let's start with you.
I guess, well, without giving all of the birth journey details away, I am, let's say, advanced maternal age, as doctors put it. And, you know, it was kind of getting to be a point of, well, are we going to have kids or not? And so there's no, like everyone tells you, there's no good time to have a child. Your first child, you just kind of end up putting it in there somewhere. And of course, the pandemic made everything even more complicated. But so, well, I guess a couple of years ago now, I started to be like, look, this is, I'm getting up there. I'm in my late 30s. I got to do this sooner or later. Otherwise, there's a lot of risks for, you know, having children. So let's just do this. And like, I know it's going to be hard for our business, but, you know, what are we going to do? Are we going to not try? Or so, you know, a lot of discussions happen, but Maxwell was born in the middle of the worst part of the first peak of the pandemic, which was, you know, obviously way worse of a birth story than you would imagine starting off. But it does kind of make you feel like, you know, you can make it through stuff. Like you've made it through having a startup and dealing with all the stress of that. And then, you know, you throw in a child and a pandemic at the same time. And you're like, you know what? People are very adaptable. Like it's not easy, but you can get through it.
Wow. Words to live by. How about you, Bertha?
So I guess like in our case, we didn't plan the baby. I was just pregnant. But it, you know, it was also like in a very, like during that time, my husband has lost his father. So then I got pregnant, and then it was, you know, like then my dad also passed away suddenly. So there was a lot of death in our family. And for me, it was kind of hard to kind of like how to mix like the fact that I'm so sad with like the fact that I'm also so happy with my baby. So it was a little bit of like a hard time for us and for me. And it is like, I'm not gonna say, like sometimes people say like, oh, I can have like this life work balance, you know, like sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you're like, like, oh my God, please help me. Like, I want my mom here. Like, please help me. You know, like there's like some days that are like that, but there are some days, but you know, like, but you also like have this like new being that you love so much that, you know, you'll give like I remember my mom says like, I will give my life for you. And I'll be like, yeah, sure. But like that when you're a kid, you're like, yes, I will give my life, everything for you, you know? So it is hard. And I agree with Teri, there's not like good time. Like, you know, I think whatever you plan, like all your plans are going to go down to the drain. But it's also like, it's a beautiful challenge, you know, and it's beautiful. And you learn how to like move things around, you learn how to do things, you get more adaptable. I think you get like even like a better business person, you know, because there's some things that you are like, okay, like now I have to, you know, like this is how I have to do work, this is how I have to manage my time, like, and you get it because of this, you know, like this is the new being, your new baby that is so important, you know, he depends on you completely, you know. So, but yeah, you know, like, and then yes, of course, like my baby was a little bit older, but you know, we still have the pandemic, and we are like, oh my God, one more thing. But you know.
Is that him in the background?
Yeah, he's in the background. Yeah. But you figure things out, you know, like, but it is scary, and it's like sometimes there's like days that you're like, oh my god. But you know, like still, like you see him smiling, you wake up and you see his beautiful smile and eyes, and you're like, okay, it doesn't matter, you're fine.
I mean, I guess one of the silver linings of I would say the pandemic is that we've had more time in the first year spent with our son than we probably would have if it was, you know, business as usual, where we would have probably dropped him off at daycare at 3 months and, you know, not have to, you know, we kept Maxwell at home for the first 6 months, and we've been working from home. And, you know, Zoom is kind of actually really enabling because you can turn the video off and have your kid on your lap too.
Yeah, that's true. I completely agree, because I think if we, you know, like it was kind of like a blessing in disguise, because you can stay at home and you can be, you know, like I will like, because at the beginning I was like, oh my god, daycare, it seems such a weird concept for me, because like in Ecuador, like if I was in Ecuador, I would probably have a nanny and I will drop my son with the nanny at my mom's house, you know. So like this thing of like, I'm gonna have to drop my son on a random person's house seems so weird, you know. So like I was like trying to kind of like mentally prepare, and then the pandemic happened and it sucks, but at the same time I was like, okay, he's with me. He's not going to some random person's house.
So it sounds like both of you agree that while it's been very difficult, the pandemic has been a bit of a blessing in disguise, as in the way of your role as a new parent, because you've been able to spend more time at home with both your sons and your partners, continue to build your business and manage this new life in your hands, which is really beautiful. And congratulations for both of you thinking of it in such a positive way. I'm sure a lot of parents have a different point of view depending on their circumstances and their partnerships with their fellow parent. How do you juggle that relationship with your co-founder, with your partner, with your parent, co-parent? How does all of that work together for you, for both of you? Teri, if you want to start with you, and Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like certain roles that each of us do. I mean, a lot of things fall on the shoulder of the mother, being that we have been breastfeeding our son, which obviously only works with the mother. But, you know, there's definitely times that like, I'm like, hey, can you take care of the kid? And, you know, Jonathan is very excited about children, so he's always like, yes, that would be great. And, you know, so usually we can find a pretty good balance. And, you know, we have a nanny at this point too. So we, you know, during the day, we don't have to deal with having to take care of our son. So that also helps. I mean, but it took us a while to get to figure out the right childcare situation for us. And I know that everybody has a different take on that. So you have to find what's right for your situation.
Does that apply to your responsibilities as a co-founder as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, since having Maxwell, I've had like less time that I've spent on the company because my time's been divided more so. And I would say that Jonathan has picked up a lot of the slack, but we've also added employees to help as well. So it's not just him doing all of the work that I was doing, for example, but you know, we have a larger staff than we had. We actually, yeah, I mean, this is unrelated to babies, but we got a big grant from NSF, the SBIR program, actually like around the same time Maxwell was born. So with that, we then hired people, and, you know, things shifted with those reasons. It was, you know, wonderful timing for our business that I could take a little bit of a step back in a way, but, you know, I'm you know, coming more full time back in the new year. So it's, but it's one of these things where you just have to be flexible and figure out what works.
Congratulations on the funding that came through. That's great. Bertha, how about you? How do you two juggle the responsibilities of being founders and parents and partners?
Yeah, no, I agree with Teri. Like there's like it's like how to find the correct balance, and also like especially at the beginning when Edgar was really little, I was the one that was taking maybe like most of his care because he's a little, like you as a mom, he needs you a little bit more. I also didn't want none of us going outside. Like I didn't, like at the beginning, nobody knew how it was going to affect you, and it's here like the two of us and our kid. Like we don't have like somebody that, like if one of us got sick, it's not like we could be like, okay, let's go to my mom, let's go to my sister's house, or let's go to my dad. Like sorry, not my dad, my brother. Because it's just both of us. So we have to be like really smart on how we manage ourselves, because there's something outside. And it was a little bit of revising what we were doing, how we can adapt, how like we don't need to do all the things. Let's focus on what's our core and then take it from there.
And what key ways, outside of what you just described, of having to revisit some of your top priorities that you thought were really important originally when you created your business, what's changed now that the pandemic has happened and shifted some of your core?
Yeah, so I guess like one of the things it was like before the pandemic, we were doing like different stuff, and one of our main things was like selling our product to the hospitality industry, bakers, restaurants, and those were the ones that were affected the most during the pandemic. Like, it's not like the flower is not there, it's still there. It's just like we have to revisit, for instance, like our target markets have changed, and now we are going to go more retail. Hopefully one day all of our clients will be back and running the way they used to, but I don't think it's going to happen, at least for, I don't know, 1 year or so.
So relying on your third-party connections really helped continue to bring in the waste from the breweries to continue to make your product.
Yes. Yeah. Third-party connections and partnerships that we have built throughout our like time at Rise. Yeah.
And then for you, Teri, you all continued down the path of making a water filter, but you also pivoted your business to respond to the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So speaking about the core competencies, our product is essentially a antimicrobial coating for fibrous materials. So we've been doing this with the water filter, but we also realized, that and we already knew this ahead of time, but that it could be applied to different types of papers, for example. And so we're like, what if we make face masks? So this is one of our face masks that is antimicrobial. And we've gone through a rapid product development from the last year to be able to manufacture this. And we're basically doing some soft launch of it in the US right now, where it's been quite the journey.
Well, in the same vein, hopefully as we get out of this pandemic and come back to a more normal reality where we're able to get together and see one another, how do you envision that changing how you've been taking care of both of your sons and all the responsibilities of being a co-founder? And now that things may shift back and you've pivoted your business, both of you, what is your expectation as we get back into a more normal reality of what your relationship with your co-founder and your sons will be? Bertha?
Yeah, so I think, with in terms of my family, I guess like in terms of my son first, so one of the things that and we notice is that because like baby developments are like physical gross motor skill, like the fine motor skills, like that was not interfered by the pandemic, because they grow, they do their things. But the social part was really like a part that we couldn't have, like one part of like at 6 months, they're supposed to be like meeting with people, like doing all these like activities. And we're not going to take out our son when there's like a pandemic outside. So it's just like, it is a challenge, but like, you have to go like little by little, introduce him to these new things that it's like, for us, it's going back to normal. For him, it's going to a new scene, because like he was born like before the pandemic hit, but he was like very little when that happened. And I guess like in terms of the business, I think the pandemic, at least for us, make us like be like very smart about like the things, like revising what's our priorities, what are the things that are working, what are the things that are not working. So I guess like we will continue doing those stuff. I guess like the difference, like for instance, like now, maybe I can visit some of our co-packers, maybe I can like visit some of our clients. Like before I was like, just like very like far away, like looking at different scenes and, like things that could be done more like in person to have like a better sort of communication that, before it was just done through phones or through Zoom calls. But I think in terms of operations, they're probably going to be like fairly similar, just like more like the communication probably will be more like on like a different level of, connection that has been done before.
How about you, Teri? Feeling similarly or completely different?
Things seem remarkably normal in some ways, where you're like, the kid's born, he does these different developmental milestones more or less at the right time and it's maybe a respite of away from all of the craziness that's out there. Where you're like, okay, well, some things are going as planned. But yeah, anyway, so the business, I already expressed some of the who knows what's going to happen with face masks. The water filter business is, that had a little bit of a delay with COVID because of shutdowns and whatnot, but it's starting, it's gotten back to its regular speed, I would say, even though, and Bangladesh has also been hit really bad with the second India COVID wave. It doesn't get all the news that India gets, but, we know numerous people in Bangladesh that just had COVID in the last month. So it's a big crisis there as well right now. But we do have a lot of, things going well over there in general, and growing, the business company over there, not just the business in the US. They're related, but the Bangladesh is more sales driven, right? So, I still, obviously, there's going to be a fundamental need for the water filter after the pandemic's over. So, I just expect that, we have to just take it as it comes. And if, these bumps happen along the way, hopefully, like, people are going to be, like, we have partners over there that funded, like, a new grant for the water filter this past winter. So like, hopefully there's flexibility with that sort of grant funding as well until sales gets to be larger. So, a lot of things, you kind of take it as it comes and make adjustments as you need to. You can plan some of the stuff, obviously, but as everyone knows, plans don't always happen as you plan them.
The universal truth between being a founder of a company and being a mother. You can't plan for everything.
Yeah.
And lastly, I'd love for you, Teri, while we have you, any advice you'd like to share with other founders who are expecting?
Yeah, I think like one of the things that I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised about with having a kid, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was, to be honest, where I feel like we've gone through so many challenges as a startup that a lot of the skills you learn to cope with being a startup founder are very applicable to having a kid, where you're like, oh, this thing changed all of a sudden. What do we do? And you figure it out like the same sort of decision-making processes. I mean, granted, you might be a little bit more tired with a new kid, but it's, you know, still a lot of the same like ways of thinking about stuff. You're learning a lot of new things really fast. Like, oh, I have to take care of this tiny being that I, you know, never had that task before. There's so much that you can learn from books and talking to people. You know, the thing about the pandemic was you couldn't really have people come to help you. Like, it's much more risky because of all of the stuff related to the pandemic. So you couldn't just call up someone and be like, hey, can you take care of the kid while I take a nap or whatever? Like, no, you didn't do that. So, I mean, I think that that'll probably lighten up when people are vaccinated in the next few months. So maybe the worst of it's over, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, it's being flexible and also trying to figure out how to make the best decisions for, you know, for your child and for your business, which, you know, if you've been through it in the startup world, you probably can figure it out with a newborn.
Yep. How about you, Bertha? Any advice you'd like to share with other founders who are expecting?
I completely agree. And I completely agree like that you have to have like some sort of like, but also like kind of like try to give some sort of a structure, you know, like I have to have like these scenes done. These are my first scenes, my top scenes. And also I have my kids. So I guess like as when you're like working and you have like your strategy and you have like, okay, I have to do these are my top 3 scenes. See it like that, you know, you don't be like so hard on you if you don't make all your scenes that you wanted to do before, because you also have to you have to be with this kid that and it's gonna be your life, you know, but it's also like really, really nice to have a baby, you know. I'm so happy to have him, you know. I don't even like kind of realize how was my life without him, you know, because it's just so beautiful.
Yeah. And also block off time that you are going to spend with your kid. If you know, like this time, it's just, I'm not going to get any work done. Just, I have in my schedule, like basically every evening from 5 to, I don't know, 8. Nope, this is not, I mean, I make dinner and do stuff, not just hang out with my kid the whole 3 hours, but realistically, like no work's getting done then. Until the rest of the evening, like, nope. Not at this time. If there's something really important, I'll look at it later that evening. Like,
yeah, I think you get better at putting boundaries, you know, because you're like, this is my child and this is his time, and I want to be like yeah. Whatever this is from this day to this day, I'm gonna be with him.
And
so
it's also like,
those things
with him being with the nanny during the day, it's like, well, this is like my time to even see him. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to be like, oh, okay, so I drop you off in the morning, or maybe we alternate between this house and the other house. But you're just like, oh, I need to spend some time with my child. That's kind of weird not to, you know?
Yeah. Thank you two so much. This was so nice to catch up with you and hear all of your advice for becoming mothers and continuing to flourish in your co-founderness and build your businesses alongside it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
And for those of us out there in the world, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. If you want to follow our podcast series and see more of our work, please go to forclimatetech.org. That's FOR climatetech.org. Thank you.